Okay, thank you very much once again, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. We're set to begin, but very quickly we'd like to have the official from the 4 Points by Sheraton Hotel brief us on security details. Thank you.
Good morning, our esteemed guest. Good morning, our esteemed guest. I'm Flora Uzo Baruko, and I'm representing Security Department here in 4 Points by Sheraton Lagos. I'm here to give you our home rules for safety tips in case of any emergency. Please be calm and listen to all informations via the speakers. The emergency response will be on the ground to direct you to the muster points and to attend to your needs. There are 3 exit doors and a stairway on this floor. The one closest to this meeting space is opposite the meeting room there. So in case of incidents, accidents, and near-misses, we have trained first aiders in the house. We also have an in-house nurse. We do not do major emergency, but normal cuts and bruises. We will have a major one. We will have affiliation with Healing Strike Hospital, which is beside the facility. We have sprinklers. We have hydrants. Due to privacy law, we do not have cameras in our meeting space. We also do not have indoor washroom, so kindly guard your items, as 4 Points will not be held responsible for any missing item. Our muster point is at the car park where we have the flag stand. They are not expecting any drills to be made, neither are we having any fire test. So please, if you hear the alarm, be calm. If we need to evacuate you, we will let you know. If not, we will still announce that the washroom is opposite the lift, and we have a trained security personnel standing quite close beside the person. If we have any question at this time, we can ask. Any question? Any question? Okay, we are not expecting any. Please do enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you very much. Please, a round of applause for her. Thank you. Thank you very much. Once again, a very good morning to each and every one of you ladies and gentlemen. We are very honored and pleased to welcome you to the very first breakfast meeting organized by the Nigerian-American Chamber of Commerce. As you all know, the theme for this event is the 2025 Economic Outlook for Nigeria. The Nigerian-American Chamber of Commerce is the oldest bilateral chamber of commerce in Nigeria, actually the first, registered in 1960. And as the name implies, we strengthen, facilitate, promote trade between Nigeria and the United States. So at that bridge, we do this by networking, like we're doing here, capacity building workshops, trade services, business-to-business meetings, trade missions, to name a few. Without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to recognize a few people who have graced this occasion. Each and every one of you is really important. I mean, the participants here stem from various sections of our economy, from manufacturing to oil and gas to energy, and I can see some of the very major companies here. But in the meantime, please permit me to recognize the presence of the #1 citizen of the Nigerian-American Chamber of Commerce, the one who is steering us in the direction of growth right now, the one who has been able to put his initiatives together to enable us to conceptualize this event, the president of the chamber, Alhaji Sherif. Welcome, sir. Thank you. I'd also like to recognize the presence of the Deputy President of the Nigerian-American Chamber of Commerce. Thank you so much for your leadership, sir. Mr. Ekin Bryan. Also present here are members of the board of the Nigerian-American Chamber of Commerce. I'd like to start by recognizing Dr. Miss, our lawyer, our legal advisor, Barrister Chiba Mbadefo. Please round of applause for him. Thank you very much. We also have sitting next to Barrister Chuba, Abdul Kadir, the CEO of Tantel and the chairman of the Committee. Thank you. This event would be possible without recognizing our speakers and our sponsors. So they've been able to put in a lot of effort, a lot of work to ensure that their intellectual property is shared and of course give us vital information we need to steer our businesses in the right direction through 2025. I'd like to begin by acknowledging the presence of our guest speaker. He is the managing partner of KPMG Professional Services, Mr. Tola Adeyemi. Please round of applause for him. Thank you very much. very much. I'd also like to acknowledge the presence of one of our speakers, Dr. Muda Yusuf, the CEO of Center for Promotion of Private Enterprise. Obikaru, the Director, Enterprise Development Center.
Acting DGI.
Thank you. Now, this event has been sponsored by one of Nigeria's leading courier and logistics companies, Zenith Currents International Limited. They've grown in leaps and bounds in just a few years of existence. Zenith Currents International Limited has been a member of the chamber. They've supported us immensely, and of course they've been featuring very significantly in the courier, logistics, transportation, and of course right now, the energy sector. Please a round of applause for the CEO and MD, none other than Dr. Adela. He also doubles as a speaker. Once again, I'd like to welcome each and every one of you. The recognition to keep going on as more specially invited guests keep coming in. The CEO of Ethiopia Airlines, Nigeria, you're welcome, thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, will you please rise as we take the national anthems of Nigeria and the United States of America.
Nigeria, we hail thee, our own dear native land. Though tribe and tongue may differ, in brotherhood we stand. Nigerians old and proud to serve our sovereign motherland. Our land shall be a symbol that truth and justice reign. In peace or peace we count as gain. To hang unto our children a banner nation, and this our one request. Help us to build a nation where no man is oppressed. And so with peace and plenty, Nigeria may be blessed.
Very quickly, I'd like to recognize the presence of the chairman of the Programs Committee of the Nigerian-American Chamber of Commerce, Dr. Ikenna Nwosu. Thank you so much. A round of applause for himself. I'd also like to recognize members and officials from Union Bank here present, KPMG. I see officials of Zenith Bank walking in. Thank you so much for coming. My name is Wofai Samuel. I'm the Acting Director General. Moving on to the program of events on page 1. The next item on the list is the opening remarks from the Chairman Programs Committee and his board director, Dr. Ikenna Nwosu. Please a round of applause for him.
Thank you, EJ. Ladies and gentlemen, please a round of applause for Nigeria's first bilateral chamber of commerce, the Nigerian-American Chamber of Commerce. Please don't loud them. Clap louder for the chamber. It was established in 1960, the same year we had our independence. So we are first without people, not among people, because nobody else was established in 1960 as a bilateral chamber. In leading in that regard, let me establish protocol. Mr. President, Alhaji Sharif Balogun, Deputy President, Mr. Ibrahim, members of the Board of Directors of the Chamber of Commerce, the NACC, here present, members of the Chamber, our distinguished guest speaker, Mr. Tola Adeyemi, our distinguished panelists, Dr. Muda Yusuf, Dr. Labileko Adelano, Dr. Dele Oye, and our distinguished moderator, Dr. Neka Okeke, so many doctors. That's nice. So, distinguished members of the press, distinguished members of the business community, ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure and my privilege as chairman of the program committee and the board member to welcome all of you to our first breakfast meeting for the year 2025, focused on discussing the 2025 economic outlook for our dear country. Suffice it to say that yes, there is Nigeria, the world is still reeling from two different global recessions. Nigeria is struggling with its own economic situation. Our economic situation is not fully under our control because there are always external factors. So, it only makes sense that at the beginning of the year, we sit together, assess the situation as it is, make projections, recommendations to guide the members of our chamber, including recommendations to the government, federal, subnational, and to our American partners. So I thank you all for leaving your busy schedules today to join us here to have these conversations. They will be game-changing, they will be trend-setting, and they will be useful to all our businesses. I also want to particularly note that our guest speaker today is the CEO of an American establishment. It was deliberate, because this is the Nigerian-American Chamber of Commerce. To get Tola Adeyemi out of the room is no mean task. To get all these resource people, panelists, and moderators, no mean task. So I urge, on behalf of Mr. President and the board, we urge maximum participation. This event has been graciously sponsored by Zenith Carex Limited, one of the leading logistics companies in the country, and by our program of events. It is my pleasure and privilege to have the DG come up and invite the sponsor to come and give the sponsor's remarks. Dr. Labileko, please. Thank you. Please, a round of applause for him.
Good morning, everyone. I'd like to start with the protocol. First of all, I want to thank Nigerian-American Chamber of Commerce for giving us this platform. Even though we have been an active member over the years, we are not taking that for granted. It's a privilege for us to use this platform to talk about our business. And our business very straightforward. It's a services. We all know that when it comes to doing business all over the world, you can never ignore the role of the employee. This became very manifest during COVID time. The only service that was allowed is either health or logistics. And logistics is a business that supports all businesses all over the world. Name the business you do logistics. Either to send your documents, a letter, correspondence, you see the logistics to do that for you. Whether you want to move cargo from one point to the other, see the logistics. So we have primed ourselves in Nigeria as a legal logistics company in Nigeria with over 2 decades. And it's stronger. Their carriers have moved over the years from to all of these things, supply chain management.
Here is a world.
Whether I want to bring in anything from anywhere in the world, we have a person there. And it's a company that grew from humble beginning to where we are today. And we operate the same license with the life of the job with the multinational today. So we want to enjoy you when you need the service of logistics. We have our presence in all 36 states. We have 80 branches. We have easy accessibility to where you live. In Lagos alone, we have about 20 branches in Lagos across every country. Currently, we have a ride for 400 terminal on the Lagos Expressway, which will reduce the turnaround time. When you are bringing your container into the country, you don't need to labor too hard to get your container out. Within a period of 48 hours, 72 hours, your container is on the way to final destination. So that is the little I would say, so that I don't beat it over next time. Thank you very much for listening to us. We're expecting to receive a call from you for your next shipment anywhere in the world or from Nigeria to the world. Thank you very much.
Here is a world where logistics is seamless, efficient, reliable, and delivery difference. Welcome to Nigeria, and welcome to Zenith Carex Express.
We are Nigeria's giant indigenous courier and logistics company with operations across Nigeria and globally. Our operations include supply chain and distribution, freight forwarding by sea and air, warehousing and cold chain management, express courier and parcel delivery, e-commerce logistics, and customized or tailored logistics operations.
Within Nigeria and beyond, we deliver and handle your logistics needs with professionalism and trust. Our professional team, with over 20 years of operations experience, understands the terrain and standards and can navigate every huddle to ensure timely clearing and delivery of your cargo or shipment. Working with our trusted network of partners, we are not only championing the logistics sector in Nigeria, we are fostering economic development, creating jobs, and supporting our people. Connect with Zenith Carex Express and experience the difference in our delivery.
Thank you. Thank you very much. A round of applause for Zenith Carex International. So the details about this company can be found on the back page of the brochure cover. So the details about Zenith Carex International Limited for your courier and logistics service is found on page 2 of the brochure and on the back side, the back cover of the brochure. We're now proceeding very quickly to the next item on our agenda, and that's the welcome address by the President of the Nigerian and American Chamber of Commerce, Alhaji Sharif Balo. Please, a round of applause for him to take this.
Distinguished members of the Executive Committee and Board of the Nigerian-American Chamber of Commerce, our esteemed guest speaker, Mr. Tola Adeyemi, partner of MG, our panelist and moderator, our general sponsor, CEO of Zenith Carex International Limited, the National President of the Nigerian Association of Chambers of Commerce and Industry and Mines and Agriculture, Honorable David Kelby, our honorees for today, Mr. Richard Mufekalido, recipient of the Creative Industry Legend Award, special guests, members of the press, ladies and gentlemen. It's my pleasure to welcome you to this significant breakfast meeting. As we convene at the outset of 2025, Nigeria stands at a pivotal junction, balancing economic challenges with notable achievements. Our theme today, 2025 Economic Outlook for Nigeria, is both timely and essential as we navigate the complexities of our economy, economic progress and government achievements. Let us examine that. The Nigerian government has implemented strategic reforms aimed at stabilizing and growing the economy. One, the macroeconomic stability. The Central Bank of Nigeria projects a GDP growth of 4.17% in 2025, driven by ongoing reforms and efforts to stabilize inflation. Inflation currently stands at 34.8%. It is expected to decline as these reforms take effect, enhancing purchasing power and economic confidence. Tax reform. Proposed tax reforms, including adjustments to the value-added tax, aim to curb inflation and lower costs for most households while exempting essential items like food and medicine. Infrastructure development. Significant investments have been made in transportation and energy infrastructure, improving connectivity and supporting industrial growth. The expansion of seaports and dry ports has enhanced export logistics, reducing bottlenecks and improving trade agility. For trade and export growth, trade facilitation programs have increased Nigeria's trade balance to the tune of 6.5 trillion in the second quarter of 2024, with exports accounting for 60.8% of total trade. Non-oil exports have seen a substantial rise, contributing to a more than, in the first half of 2024, Nigeria recorded total receipts of $2.7 billion from non-oil, $3 billion in the same period in 2023. Looking at the medium-term expenditure, framework, plan to ensure fiscal discipline and sustainable growth. Key highlights include proposed budget of 47 trillion, although adjusted by the president to 56 trillion only a few days ago, before he left the country to the AU summit of head of states. We've seen a significant increase from $5 per barrel, and the target, well, deficit management. The framework anticipates a deficit-limited GDP with strategies in place to finance this responsibility. IMF and World Bank projections. Global financial institutions have provided insight into Nigeria's economic trajectory. The IMF projects Nigeria's economy to grow by 3.2% in 2025, with inflation expected to decrease to 25% in the same year. The World Bank forecasts a more optimistic growth rate of 3.5% in 2025, driven by increased activity in the service sector and gradual improvement in macroeconomic stability. These projections underscore the importance of sustained reforms, prudent fiscal management to achieve desired economic outcomes. Now we come to challenges and opportunities. While these achievements are commendable, challenges persist. Inflationary pressures. Despite projected declines, inflation remains a concern, affecting the cost of living and business operations daily. Infrastructure deficit. Continued investment is needed to address gaps, particularly in power and transport sector. Volatility. Fluctuations in the exchange rates pose challenges for imports, dependent industries, and overall economic stability. This has led to exit of some multinationals, shutdowns of factories, decreased demand, and balance sheets of a lot of companies are in the red. However, opportunities abound. Digital economy. The rise of digital technology and see Nigeria as a leader in innovation across Africa. Renewable energy. Investment in renewable energy are expanding, and access to sustainable power is achieved, supporting economic activities and environmental goals. Youth. Nigeria's vibrant youth population is driving entrepreneurship, fostering innovation, and creating employment opportunities. Now, honoring excellence in creative economy. We are privileged earlier on to honor Mr. Richard Mofedamido with the Creative Industry Legend Award for his outstanding contribution to know the product piece that produced with under 200 million, grossing several billions at premium on their, and a lot of box office and success. The Nigerian creative sector is rising. Really recently, we saw some of our stars at 10 win a Grammy Award. These are encouraging and broadens our economy, and it provides opportunities for our teaming youth. Unfortunately, I would say Mr. Richard Mofedamido is supposed to be here with us, but due to other engagements, he was forced to go to Abuja to see the Vice President. He was due to be with us throughout. So we had to move this program a bit forward. And he was here earlier on at 8 o'clock, where we presented the award to him. And then we'll have a movie of what happened just before you came in. The program was due to start at 9 o'clock, so you have been here, but we have to start at 8 o'clock. Davido's illustrious career as an actor, producer, and mentor has not only elevated the Nigerian film industry, but has showcased the potential of our creative sectors on the global stage. His dedication and passion serve as an inspiration to many and highlight the significant role of the creative economy in Nigeria's overall economic development. The American Chamber of Commerce has been instrumental in facilitating trade and investment, strengthening economic ties between Nigeria and the United States through networking, advocacy, and trade services, supporting economic diversification, promoting non-oil export investment in emerging sectors, policy advocacy, engaging stakeholders to drive policy reform that enhance the business environment. With chapter offices in Nigeria, Houston, Atlanta, Maryland, the Chamber remains committed to fostering stronger economic partnership. I extend my sincere gratitude to Mr. Tola Adeyemi, our distinguished panelist, our moderator, Dr. Nneka, Honorable David Kelvin, the President of
KPMG Nigeria, and the CEO of KPMG West Africa, Mr. Tola Adeyemi.
Good morning. Good morning, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, the President of the Nigerian-American Chamber of Commerce, members of the board, and all distinguished guests. Please permit me to stand on existing protocol. Let me start by saying how honored I am to be here today to speak to you on the economy. When I looked at the program, I saw that my time had been reduced even further to 15 minutes. Now, 15 minutes is way too short to have a discussion on Nigeria and the economy. So you'll permit me to perhaps spend a little more time going through the issues. I know that we have a panel that will be talking to some of the issues later on. So I'll also try to go as quickly as possible. My aim is to do 4 things within this presentation. I want to provide a snapshot of the Nigerian economic environment, talk about some key trends that we need to keep our eye on, because these are key trends and factors that will shape 2025 and beyond. I'll provide my views on the sectoral outlook on certain sectors that I think will do well despite what's going on in the broader economy, and then we'll distill some implications and takeaways. So let's get started in this conversation. On the screen here is the snapshot of our economy. Immediately, what strikes you when you look at it is that we're dealing with a mixed bag. When you look at the key indices, we have a number of the key indices that are moving, one would argue, in the wrong direction at the moment. But it's not all doom. At the same time, there are some indices that are showing positive development. So whether you look at when you look at the rate of growth of our population, I look at that rate of growth as representing an opportunity. When the president was speaking earlier, he spoke about the size of the youth population in particular and the potential that comes from that youth population. The sad thing, of course, is that we are not growing our economy to keep pace with the rate of growth of the population, as a result of which we see increased tendencies of poverty and a downward trend in many indices. So really, for me, it's, I don't want to spend time talking about how we got here, because I think it's a far more important conversation to talk about how we move on from where we are. So in response to this picture, what's been going on? In response to this picture, we've had a plethora of reforms. I dare say that we're going through one of the most aggressive reform periods in the history of our country. There are a number of things that we're trying to address all at the same time. And we may have debates about the timing and what should have been the right sequencing of the reforms. But we can't get away from the fact that these were necessary reforms to address structural imbalances within our country. The impact of the reforms, of course, has been tough. It's been tough to take. When you ask the man on the street to summarize where things are at the moment, the summary is simple. Things are hard, people are hungry. That's the bottom line, and that's the way the summary goes. But there's a bigger picture to that conversation. The bigger picture is that we've had to drive reforms in various sectors of the economy. So you see fiscal reforms, the famous and much talked about fuel subsidy removal, electricity subsidy removal, review of minimum wages, local government reforms, tax reforms, etc. On the monetary side, various things, unification of exchange rates,
measures targeted at tackling inflation, and you could go on and on and on. The summary of these, the way in which I look at this is that we've chosen to do the hard things as a country, but they're the hard, right things. They're things that are necessary, and we are going through the pain that's required in any system of change, with the expectation that at the end of it, we will come out okay. So that's where we are, that's what we're going through. So, as given where we are now, what's the outlook as we move forward? In discussing this concept of the outlook, I've decided to bucket the developments that we should keep an eye on into 5 main buckets. The first bucket that we've got to keep watch on are global dynamics. This is simply because Nigeria as a country, we do not operate in isolation. We operate within a macro environment, and we are very vulnerable to external shocks. That's the nature of our economy. So when you look at global dynamics, you look at factors happening. As they're coming into office for the second time of President Trump, a good example. The geopolitical tensions that are going on, the implications of these for energy volatility, and then the emergence of artificial intelligence. I was in Johannesburg earlier this week, and you remember, you may have followed, President Trump tweeted about South Africa. He spoke about the fact, he said something about land reforms, you know, they're not doing the right thing, there will be consequences, etc. The next day, the rand plummeted. Stock prices crashed on the Johannesburg Stock Exchange, you know, and I was there, and the businessmen were all, you know, talking about the volatility that had been introduced by a simple tweet from the US president. So I think and if you look at what has happened to date since he came into office, I think we should all be bracing for increased volatility and uncertainty that will arise from things that he plans to do. But in the midst of this, the other key thing for me in this geopolitical terrain, of course, we've seen the impacts that the crisis in Russia, Ukraine has had, the crisis in Israel has had. But in the midst of this crisis, we must also keep an eye on the emergence of artificial intelligence and technology in terms of the way in which it is going to change businesses and industry. And as business leaders ourselves, we've got to be asking, how is this development going to impact my business, my industry, and how do I stay on top of it? The second bucket I put here is the expansionary fiscal strategy and policy of government. And you see this reflected in the proposed 2025 budget. I'll talk a bit more about that budget in the next slide. There are tax reforms that are happening. We'll keep an eye on those and how they impact business. The debt levels, very significant. And then GDP rebasing, something we should also keep an eye on. I'll talk a bit more about each of those areas. As we look at 2025, inflation and the success or otherwise of the government's efforts to tame inflation will be quite significant for the economy. There are a number of measures that government is taking to try to tame inflation at the present time. Addressing food inflation is crucial in that process because food inflation has been the main driver of the inflation that we're experiencing. Government has tried to address inflation by raising interest rates. And today we have interest rates at unprecedented levels. But this impacts business. It impacts business quite fundamentally because it challenges the kinds of returns that you need in order to be able to cover interest rates. Again, I'll talk a bit more about these as we go on. The other trend to watch, of course, is what's happening on the exchange rate. Because as we've seen in the Nigerian economy, what happens on exchange rates invariably ends up affecting prices as well. So the outlook on exchange rates, I'll talk about that. The fifth bucket is around strategic sectors. The reforms that government is taking are aimed at unlocking certain sectors of the economy. So keeping an eye on those reforms and what's happening there and how it affects sectors gives us an indication of where we should be playing and where the biggest opportunities are. So I'll talk in more detail about each of these areas, but these are the factors that I see that we've got to keep an eye on as we look at 2025 and going forward. A quick word on the budget. So we have a draft budget. I call it draft. It's under deliberation by the National Assembly. It was initially a 49.7 trillion budget, but as the President said, the President, His Excellency, the President of the country, has revised that budget upwards. So instead of spending 49 trillion, we'll now be spending 54 trillion. And that is significant when you look at where is that money planned to be spent. So you look at where it's planned to be spent. The biggest areas, the biggest areas we see are in terms of security and defense, as well as infrastructure building. You would argue that, well, that seems to make sense within our context. And when he spoke about the revision to the budget, he also indicated that some additional money may go into these areas. Areas such as healthcare, education, social development, etc. Underlying the budget, I set up assumptions. If you look quickly at the assumptions, inflation, 15%. What's the implication for that? We've seen that part of the strategy for lowering this inflation seems to be the rebasing of the economy. And, we have to ask ourselves how real that is in terms of impacting prices. So I would say that the inflation outlook at the moment looks somewhat optimistic in real terms. Oil production, again, to my mind, a somewhat optimistic assumption. Oil prices, you would argue that the oil price estimate in the budget would seem realistic, but subject to what other developments might arise from geopolitical tensions or indeed the direction of the American economy and what they do in terms of oil. GDP growth rates, again, an assumption that looks on face value to be somewhat optimistic given where we are. Exchange rates about stabilizing at 1,500. I think it's realistic to say that we should expect exchange rates to stabilize. But whether they will stabilize at 1,500, I think is subject to debate. Our outlook is more around 1,600. But the real news in this budget, or what we should really keep an eye on, is the level of the deficit. And that is the question that wasn't answered when the president announced the increase in expenditure. What does that mean? Does it mean that the plan is to have an even higher deficit? Do the extra revenues he spoke about mean we'll have a lower deficit or keep it the same? It wasn't quite clear. What is clear is that the deficit that we have is currently at an extremely high level, and it's got to be financed. How is this deficit going to be financed? It's going to be financed by increased borrowing, at least from what they tell us. Hopefully we will not resort to financing it by just printing more money, which is a strategy we've done in the past that has led us to where we are now. So we're looking at a plan from the federal government essentially to borrow more. That's what we're seeing here. And we've got to ask ourselves, what's the impact of this additional borrowing going to be on the economy? Clearly it will affect interest rates, because a lot of the borrowing, some of the borrowing will be external borrowing. It may affect exchange rates as a consequence of that. It may mean that the private sector is squeezed out of the market, and so on and so forth. So the size of the deficit and what we do with that deficit is important. And that leads to the discussion on the level of debt. And this is something that as a country, we've got to keep a close eye on. The often quoted statistic here is debt to GDP ratio. When you look at our debt to GDP ratio, you would say we're actually fine, because our debt to GDP ratio is comparable to many countries. Indeed, you would even argue that the debt to GDP ratio suggests that we have even more capacity to borrow, to do additional borrowing. But that, to my mind, is not the index or the index we've got to look at. What we've got to keep an eye on is the debt to revenue service ratio. And that's where you see the problem, or the impending problem. Our debt to revenue service ratio, we project, is going to be about 65%. Last year, or in 2023, it had risen to about 97%, which meant that we were using all our revenues virtually to service debt. This year, at least based on the draft budget, the projection is that we're going to be using 65% of our revenues to service debt. That is not a sustainable situation to be in. And that has implications for the economy as a whole. We all saw what happened in Ghana when Ghana defaulted on its debt and has had to restructure its debt and reach agreements with creditors. We don't ever want to be in that position. So focusing on how we manage the debt is going to be quite important. And that brings to question straight away the issue of revenues, because the only way to improve this situation is to earn more revenues as a country. It's why the government has brought in the tax reforms, for instance. The tax reforms, there's been a lot of debate around VAT. And yes, VAT rates are projected to increase. The debate has been more around how you share the VAT amongst the states. But the real issue is that with an increase in VAT rates, the experience we've had in Nigeria is that that drives prices up even further. So as you look at the government's attempts to rein in inflation, I think you may see a counterbalancing with the increase in VAT rates also now putting upward pressure on prices. For businesses, if the tax reforms are implemented properly, it should mean that you would now be able to claim input VAT more efficiently than had been done in the past. And that should be good news. The other thing that should be good news for businesses is the whole attempts to reform the tax appeal process and come up with an independent ombudsman. Again, that should be good in helping to resolve some of the tricky tax issues that are there. At least you have an independent ombudsman that should be able to take an objective look at things. But the implication for business, really, when you look at tax reforms and the macroeconomy, I think the VAT issue could have an upward pressure on prices, depending on where you are in terms of your income. But I believe most businesses in this room are already paying above the minimum tax rate anyway, so maybe you won't see an impact from that perspective. But certainly for government, it should result in additional tax revenues coming into government, which should help the deficit situation we spoke about. For inflation, the thing to keep an eye on here, to my mind, is how successful is the government going to be in tackling food inflation. They've got to tackle issues of availability, which speaks to, the whole issue of post-harvest losses in transportation, etc., affordability of food, where infrastructure, or lack thereof tends to push up prices, accessibility, getting to the markets on time, and of course stability. So how successful will the government will be in dealing with these things will be a factor in driving what we see in terms of food inflation, and as a consequence, what we see as the inflation outlook for the year. On exchange rates, I do think there's some positive news on exchange rates. But when I say positive news, it's not the news that exchange rates are coming down. It's the news that exchange rates we should see a lot more stability in exchange rates in 2025. And that's positive from the point of view that when you have stability, then you can plan. A number of business people that I speak to tell me that it's not the rate that matters. The key issue is volatility. You cannot plan, you cannot, forecast what things are going to be. It makes pricing very difficult. But if you have stability, even if it is at the levels we're talking about, which is around somewhere between 1,500 to 1,600 naira to the dollar, if you have stability, then that is good from that perspective. And there are a number of things that suggest stability should be possible. Nigeria recently successfully raised a Eurobond, which provides additional foreign currency liquidity into the economy. There are moves to improve the transparency around the pricing of foreign currency. Nigeria's current account is surplus is also improving, or at least the current account situation is improving. So I think as we look at 2025, we should be reasonably optimistic that we will see stable exchange rates. Let me talk quickly about the GDP rebasing, because this is something else that is going to happen in 2025, and indeed will be announced imminently. So what's this all about? So again, we're going to have a revision. Again, we're going to have a revision to the way in which we calculate our GDP. We're bringing in new sectors that were previously excluded, and then also changing the weighting that are assigned to various parameters. What this will result in is that the GDP will go up. And once the GDP goes up, then all our ratios will improve. So our GDP per capita will improve, debt to GDP will improve, etc. So it will look good. The other thing that we're doing is rebasing the consumer price index, which means how we compute inflation. We're also changing that because the new base year is going to be 2024. So if you think about it, 2024 prices were already at this level. So when you rebate, if you set 2024 as the base and you say what has been the increase, the rate of inflation will automatically drop because the base has become higher. But these are all changes that will happen, I dare say, on paper. Because the announcements will be that inflation has dropped, but it won't change the prices that you're dealing with. So, but the expectation is that by announcing that the indices are looking better, that will improve confidence in the economy. And that improved confidence should result in improved investment and growth. So instead of our current position where we're, I think, number 4 or so in Africa now on a GDP basis, by the time we rebase, we expect to climb back up to, I don't know, number 2 or 1. And the announcement that, hey, we're now up, that should improve confidence, you know. But it does point to the fact that at the end of the day, we can do rebasing, but we've got to say, are we addressing the real issues that we need to deal with within our economy? And that's what this is all about, the reforms. But I want to put on the table, in addition to the reforms, there are 2 big issues that I think we need to address. The first one is productivity. The real issue, ladies and gentlemen, from my perspective, is that the Nigerian economy and the level of productivity in Nigeria is too low. That to me is the real issue. When you look at, and when I say productivity, you can measure it in terms of GDP per hour per person or GDP per hour worked. The bar charts that I show on the screen gives you a snapshot of GDP per hour worked, which is saying for every hour of work in a place like Luxembourg or Denmark, they're generating, you know, $166,000 in Luxembourg. Nigeria is at about 6. So you see low productivity. We rank 159 out of 186 countries in terms of labor productivity. We've got to improve that factor and improve it significantly. Our productivity is low, even compared to South Africa, everywhere else. Why is productivity so low? And what do we need to do? It's down to, we would argue, infrastructure. I would also say human capital. Human capital and the development of human capital. So the investments that we need to make in education, in healthcare, in infrastructure, those are the things that will help to raise our productivity. And those are the fundamentals that we need to keep doing. The other factor, of course, to my mind, is corruption. Tackling responsible governance is crucial. The data suggests that countries that have low levels of corruption have a higher GDP. The data supports that somehow there's that correlation between your level of corruption and the growth that you have. So I say that these 2 things are the things we need to keep a relentless focus on: raising productivity and tackling corruption. But as I said earlier, the government is implementing a number of reforms in various sectors, and those reforms are driving developments in a number of sectors. So when we look at the sectors and say what's the outlook for 2025, we see a positive outlook in a number of sectors driven by the reforms that are happening. So we look at financial services. I think the bank recapitalization is a good thing. I think that will help to improve stability of that sector and improve their capacity to lend and create additional opportunities. And you could take each one in turn. ICT, there's some interesting things happening there that we should look at and capitalize on. Same thing with construction. Mining is another big area where changes are happening, opportunities are opening up. Health and education, great things are happening in the healthcare space. I think government is really driving lots of reforms there, and so on and so forth. I'm sure during the panel discussion we can go through these in a bit more detail. So let me round it up by saying, as we look at 2025, what do we expect? If you just step back in everything I've said, I would say there will still be some levels of uncertainty driven by global dynamics. We expect exchange rates to stabilize. Interest rates will still be high, even though we expect them to come down a bit. They will still be at relatively high levels. Inflation, we expect prices, there still will be upward pressure on prices, perhaps as a result of the VAT increases, but things like the CPI, the rebasing, we will have announcements of lower numbers of inflation, and we will have announcements of a bigger economy, faster GDP growth, etc. But there's no doubt that these announcements will create some positivity, particularly from the external outlook. And I have to say that even though we are groaning at the impact of the reforms, from an external perspective, there is improved confidence, because the external world is saying, finally, Nigeria has decided to do the right things. So we are seeing improvements in capital inflow, etc. So as you think about 2025, I think those are the things I would say that you should be expecting. In that environment, therefore, and this is my closing slide, what do you do? I've made some suggestions here. One, as members of the Nigeria-American Chamber of Commerce, I would say position to take advantage of emerging opportunities in new growth areas. We spoke about artificial intelligence, there's renewable energy, there's gas, because things are going to be happening in the gas space. There are opportunities in various sectors, positioned to take advantage of them. But we've got to remain agile as businesses, because the uncertainty in the environment will continue. So we've got to remain agile and alert to things that are happening. Diversify your portfolio. As businesses, think of how you can diversify your portfolio in order to spread out your risk. The focus on the customer is a priority, because in these times, customers are under pressure. Customers are very discerning. They have to be, because they're squeezed in terms of how they prioritize their cash. So making sure that customers have a great experience, becomes even more paramount. And of course, being agile in terms of your pricing strategies, the pricing of your products and services. Focusing on cost optimization, operational excellence, cash flow management will continue to be important. And as a Chamber of Commerce, the Nigerian-American Chamber, the premier chamber, the oldest chamber. My message is, you've got to do more. You've got to do more in terms of leveraging positive change within the economy. Pushing in strategic sectors, preferring ideas to government, and just always being there to provide that direct feedback on the impact of government policies. That's that the Nigeria-American Chamber of Commerce has provided in the past, but must continue to do, and to do even more of that. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Please, another round of applause for our guest of honor. The senior partner KPMG Nigeria and CEO KPMG West Africa. So the slides for this presentation will be shared after now. I do hope that you've all dropped your complimentary cards at the registration desk. If you haven't, I'm hoping that you've written your emails on the registration sheets of papers that were provided. Much later, we'll share the presentations for today to each and everyone who has participated. We're moving now on to the next agenda on our program. If you look through the rundown of our program of activities, we did say that at 10:30 to 11 a.m. we'll be having an award presentation to the creative industry legend, Richard Ofedamija, and the President has spoken extensively on why we have to reschedule that. So I wouldn't want to go through all that detail again. Now, the video from the presentation will also be shared much later in the course of the program. We're moving right now to the panel session. And this panel presentation will be led by Dr. NACC, which is the Director, Enterprise Development Center. She will be introducing the panelists and participants in the session. But very quickly, before I introduce our development specialist with over 25 years of experience designing and delivering transformative programs that enhance the leadership and management competencies of business leaders. She has a strong focus on empowering women entrepreneurs. She holds a doctorate in entrepreneurship, specializing in gender dynamics, and serves as the director at the Enterprise Development Center, EDC, of the Pan-Atlantic University. She's also a member of the University's Management Council. She's an IFC certified master trainer and assessor. She leads the EDC's mission to certify business development specialists across Nigeria. Additionally, she's a certified leadership instructor and an online facilitator accredited by the Learning Performance Institute in UK. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to introduce our moderator for the panel presentation who will take on the entire session. Please a round of applause for Dr. NACC. Of private enterprises in Africa, particularly in Nigeria and West Africa. He's got an impressive portfolio of leadership roles across various industries and organizations, making him an acknowledged authority on economic growth, trade, and investment, especially in social impact investment in the creative industries, youth, and women talent businesses in the region. It's my pleasure. And women talent businesses in the region. It's my pleasure to have you sitting right beside me, so I'll be tapping current. I'm extremely happy as well because I can see youth and women, which has been my focus in the last. Yes, you can come closer so I can tap on the current. Okay, so thank you very much, sir, for all you do. And the second person I'd like to invite is Dr. Muda Yusuf, who is the Chief Executive Officer for the Center for the Promotion of Private Enterprise. Please clap, please clap. I don't know what they were thinking when they put all these powerful men together. I guess that's why I'm sitting here as the only woman. Dr. Muda Yusuf is also highly accomplished. He's the immediate past president, Director General of the Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry. Through his research-based analysis of policies of government as they affect various sectors of the economy. He's currently the founder and the chief executive officer of the Center for Promotion of Private Enterprise, which is a non-for-profit that is committed to the ideals of free enterprise and private sector development. Thank you so much, sir, for joining. And then, this person needs no introduction because we'll be sitting here if not for him. He powered the conversation we're having this morning. So it's my pleasure to invite Dr. Adelona Olamilekan. If I got that right. I didn't order your name, sir. So he's the MD and the Chief Executive Officer of Zenith Carex International Limited. His introduction was already done earlier on, so I won't do that. Thank you so much for powering this. Thank you for all you do in the logistics space. We really appreciate it. And then lastly, we're going to invite him because I don't know why they took his time from 30 minutes to 15, but he still took 7 minutes extra, which is fine. So it's my pleasure to invite our guest speaker, Tola Adeyemi, who is a senior partner at KPMG Nigeria and also the CEO of KPMG West Africa. His presentation was spot on, and he has promised that we will get the slides so that we can look at it. And for those of us that are leading platforms that have industries, it's going to be very, very useful. All right, so thank you very much, gentlemen. So the panel conversation, my job is very simple. Essentially, just to bring out quite a number of issues. But at the end of the day, it's not just for us to talk. It's not a monologue, right? We will open the floor to questions and take questions from the audience. So as we talk, please, if you have questions or comments or contributions, kindly note that we will be taking that shortly. So, my very first question, and I'll throw that back to you, Tola, right, would be the key highlights of the 2025 budget. Okay? So I want you to just very briefly talk about that, specifically because the four of us sitting here, from here downwards, we represent a very, very important segment of the economy, and that are the business owners, the small grain business owners, the mid-size and the small companies. So I want you to just very quickly just shed light. The highlights, how does it affect us? Top three.
Okay, all right, thank you very much. One, I would say the tax reforms and the impact of those tax reforms on small businesses. The intention of government has been to make sure that the threshold for when you start to pay tax, to raise that. So what that should mean is that for smaller businesses with their turnover below a certain threshold, and I don't have the figure right here, but it should mean that you should face less harassment, is the way I would put it, from agencies trying to collect tax, etc. However, it does mean for MSMEs that, again, your record keeping will have to be up to scratch, because the only way should mean that businesses are I'm
out of the Women Chamber of Commerce under one of my platforms, and I also work for my mother. In most states that cannot even pay the new salary, all of them are building airports. In most states that cannot even pay the new salary, all of them are building airports. So we start wondering, what is the priority? There are not only 3 or 2 airports in Nigeria that are right. Meaning they are all subsidized. So we know the trick. And that is why all of us here must meet here with the resolution that we don't single-digit loans, we need single-digit loans. That's why at Masima, we engage with the Bank of Industry, and we also engage with other development banks that either the government save more money to it, provide a strategy whereby the public sector should repay part of their loans. There should be sectoral cap on their ability to borrow.
So that even if it's 30%, you put. This is a constitutional matter. If your banker says that and say that I cannot borrow and you are from a state, it's nothing the state can do. So it's not a central bank controlling or the central bank trying to control the subnational. You can use the institutional to control them. So when they put the central card, even 70% will do for me. Are you going to ask for that 9%? No. If the central bank now supports it by using the capital adequacy of banks and the MPR rate, you would naturally, the interbank rate will crash. And that is our private sector idea of bringing down interest rates. So this is what my first initial intervention. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you so much for that. Okay, so my next question is for you, sir. Look at our 2025 budget, comparing to previous years. What do you see? What's the major differences? So this 2025 and then 20.
Well, the issues we are faced with, I think, is much bigger than the budget. Because the guest speaker has said a lot about budgets and all of that. But the biggest issue, in my view, is how to make the reforms work for the people. Because we are leaving too many people behind. And the beauty of an economy is to be as inclusive as possible. Because at the center of everything should be the people, it should also be investment. How are all these things supporting the process? And I believe that as a developing economy, we should have an ideological consensus on how to manage the economy. This is a developing economy. Adoption of purely classic economic management principles of market economy and all of that. We need to tweak it as we progress. Even the reform. Because what is the essence of a reform that you do and you are leaving so many people behind? The social cost is enormous. And Nigerians are intolerant enough. We have gone through this for 1.5 years now. What we want to begin to see now are the dividends, the benefits of this. Otherwise, we have a major social problem on our hands. Now we say inflation is 34%. The reality is that if you take the basket of the goods that are consumed by the average Nigerian, and you look at the price movement over the last 1.5 years, you'll be talking about close to 100% inflation. And you know the implication of that for poverty. So this should be at the center of whatever we are doing. We need to address the social cost. And this is not about using the IMF model of cash transfers. I mean, how many people can you transfer cash to? Now, we are having a major issue now with respect to trade costs. Because each time you have a lot of this conversation, we don't talk sufficiently about what is happening within the international trade ecosystem. Only yesterday, importers were getting notice that there's 4% FOB on all imports, 1%. Now we are having another 4% FOB. Before you know it, this will reflect in the marketplace. So we need to have serious engagement, and this is an advocacy issue. Mr. Adeyemi has told us what to do in terms of business strategy. But we need to fix this and draw the attention of government to these business environment issues and the issue of poverty. It's extremely very important.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Let's do after each of the panelists have spoken. And I'm going to come now to the person that made sure that we're having this session. Just listening to what they have said from a challenge perspective for yourself and others in the industry.
Thank you very much. Moderator. Well, just as the key speaker took us through the presentation, one of the very fantastic. How has that affected the logistics sector. I would say, if properly implemented in the area of road, taking goods from one point to another, it's going to also help in the area of insecurity. At least the bad road bring all the bandits. Before your vehicle maneuver and all that, you already attack your vehicle. You lost a lot of tires because of using the bad road prior to this time. So if government are sincere with the implementation and putting road infrastructure in focus, that will reduce logistic turnaround time. And in good logistics, it's a function of affordability and good turnaround time. Let me talk about the affordability part. We don't use water to run our vehicle. Even with the introduction of electric vehicle, it's still unaffordable. You can't afford it. And diesel, you see, cannot afford diesel. You know, when we had the news of Dangote refineries coming up, everybody was jumping up, that probably diesel will go back to the rate of 200 naira. But it's almost at par. So it's still a major challenge for logistic companies to give our value clients affordable price. Not just even delivering on surface meal, 1,000 from Abuja to Lagos. That's huge. But you can't fight with them. It's a competitive world. Everybody will pick their points. So, the positive side of the infrastructure, if implemented, is going to create employment for the utility youth and also reduce poverty as well. There is going to bring about inclusiveness in growth. So, as a logistic company, we are still not seeing the better lights of 2025 economic outlook as regards to the budgets of this year. So that's what
All right, so I'm back to you, Tola, and I have a double-barrel question. So the first one being, what's the major gap in this budget? And then the second thing, FDI, foreign direct investments, where do we stand? What happens to that for us? How can we attract more? Are we able to attract more with this budget and the direction we can see from the government is going?
Thank you for those questions. The major gap, as I said, for me, what I see as the big stay-away issue is the level of debt in the budget and the sustainability of those levels of debt for the macroeconomy. So I think it's fine. We need to spend money on certain critical sectors, and we're seeing the government trying to do that. The question is going to be at what cost, and how sustainable is this going to be over the long term? So that for me is the big conversation, to say what is the debt management strategy of government over the medium term, because you've got to bring down levels of debt over time for there to be sustainability. In the short term is the implication on interest rates, exchange rates, crowding out the private sector, etc. So that needs to be fixed. And I'm not sure we've heard government articulate yet what that debt management strategy is going to be. On the FDI front, because I meet with foreign investors all the time, there has been capital flows coming into the country. The high interest rates have been attractive. We call that kind of money hot money, because it comes in to take advantage of a situation and then goes out immediately, immediately things turn. So there's been money coming in, no doubt, because of interest rates. Investors are saying to us that, look, we like the direction things are going, but we've got to see it sustained on a more long-term basis before we make the big decisions to bring in money. And they tell us that there are other places that we can invest. So as an investor, we look at where can we get the highest return for our money. We're not charities, and I was in a meeting once with government officials, foreign investors, and foreign investors said, look, it's a different proposition if you're asking us to invest for, charitable purposes or for the good of mankind and etc. But we are here, to make money, So we will look at the Nigerian case, we'll compare it to Indonesia, we'll compare it to all over the world and say, where can we get the best return? So their message to government is that you've got to, yes, you're doing the reforms, but you've got to have them sustained, and we need to see outcomes for there to be real flows. So I would say all of us, while we acknowledge the pain, and Dr. Muda is right that we've got to do some things to take care of the more vulnerable in the society while going through these tough reforms. But we shouldn't stop the reforms. That will send a negative signal to the international community. Right now, the view is you're going in the right direction. We want to see consistency. And then, hopefully there'll then be a compelling case and you'll see FDIs rushing in. But right now, there's a bit of a let's wait and see.
Okay, so we're doing Sidon basically. That's what they're doing. Okay, thank you. So I think next question will go to you. And this question is concerning your members. Okay, so what are the implications of this budget on your members that are in manufacturing, trade, and logistics?
Well, first of all, when you say my members, I want to explain where I'm coming from. Okay, I'm the president of NACC, and I'm also technically chairman of the Women's Chamber of Commerce. By virtue of my mother, working for my mother. So, and I'm also the current chairman of the organized private sector, which has 5 distinct members, independent members. They will use the platform to collaborate. That is Manufacturing Association, NACC, and then I hope all of us know what it is, as I don't want to take time calling their logos. What we try to do on that platform is to see how we can collaborate. First, to the interest of our neighbors, and how we can also grow the economy. Because, like our lead speaker had said, debt is not a sustainable way to do it. If you continue to borrow, you need to borrow. And the most unfortunate thing in Nigeria is that the DMO office does not even talk to us who are the potential payers of the loan they are taking between them and Central Bank. And I was challenged and I said, keep telling you to borrow. You are borrowing our name. And we are the one that can produce the goods that will grow the economy. There's no connection. And even the money you borrow, you don't even come back to give us. Or at least sit down with us how we can apply it in the productive sector. So the most important thing in all this, what I'm saying is, Nigeria is a good place to do this, as I've said. The economy needs to do the right. And everywhere in the world where you have seen growth and opportunity, the government listens first to the businesses and use their ideas to make policies and laws. But in Nigeria, the tendency for the government, they will teach you how to do your own business. Painfully. Something happened recently. One of my members sent Gary from Ekiti. He was sending Gary from Ekiti for the first time abroad. So I was so happy with the news. I was sharing with different things. When he came to downtown, he said, the thing has not come through our laboratory. We are supposed to give export license. So when you have NAPC, when the NACC start issuing export license, the attitude of those government entities is they're not interested in any form of trade facilitation. All of them want to collect revenue and show to Mr. President how they've done well. Last year, FRS got over 21 trillion, and the custom got almost 6 trillion also from revenue from me and use it in this one. All that we're doing with to pay salaries, to pay interest. What is the reinvestment? And most of the current government attitude or policies for the investment is to do PPP on the roads and everything. Government does not subsidize anything in Nigeria. Show me what that is subsidized. Nothing. So, companies will exist for the benefit of all. The setup will be encouraged. And what our members are simply asking for is 3 things. More reasonable laws, decent regulation. Not the one that the people will come. Before this, there's a pressure called FCC. If they visit you like you are being invaded by a drug agency, they will seal your gate. Nobody will go out. They carry your laptop. What is somebody that is going to do competition doing your laptop? You know, they don't even understand that they're even preaching another law. We are going all these. They need to be change about it. I'm not saying every agency of government is doing the job. But I can tell you, not really recently, I have to say it. It's very rare for me to openly praise government. But since the new direction of the Honorable Minister of Trade, both for state and this, we have just a phone call away to resolve major issues we have to address the press conference before. Recently, one industry was completely closed throughout the country because there was a fake WhatsApp message going around that the products from that sector was being fake. The guy is a very small MDA like this, seal up every industry nationwide on a Sunday. So I called the minister, I said, so we are working together. So why are you closing my members' fight? I mean, you want to be on television this night and say, no, please. Truly, before I woke up in the morning, apart from the minister calling so my members to apologize, those factions were all. So this is the kind of collaboration we need. This government is ours. If they make mistake, all of us will lose as businesses. So we are on the same side. That's why I tell them every time that before they take decisions, when they see a remote, they just change their attitude, they start submitting, they start signing agreement. They don't do business. And I can tell you, I was in G20 in India with Mr. President. We got $14.7 billion investment commitment between me and you. I challenge anybody in Nigeria to show me the fact. Even the land they have acquired to do the business, they don't exist. So then you hear this announcement, it's foreigner. I went with them to Qatar. So we are going all this. Anytime you don't involve, because business is like a marriage. The government is the priest, is to facilitate. In any marriage, the priest shows up the bedroom. It means the marriage is not working. So the government trying to go abroad and to sign an agreement on behalf of Nigeria, their government is facilitating their private sector. It's a mismatch. And that is why policies I will not say, because I don't want the government to think I made them, but there are many policies they have signed. And importing, you can't even sign only import so much products into Nigeria. I mean, those things does not make sense. There are Nigerians already developing, assembling, and building tractors in Nigeria. You go to a new country who have never used their product before. You want to face it now, you are bringing 2,000 tractors. To who? Because somebody want to collect commission. So, all these things, our deficit, for it to come down from this 13 trillion, 0.6 or 7, we must work with the private sector in an organized way because we want to pay the debt. If the indices does not work well, like it's looking nice and where the dollar is coming its own dollar, it's because people can see prospects. If we go back again and go and start spending when the year ends, we'll go back to the naira policy. How will we suffer? So what I'm saying all this is, to avoid this incidence of inordinate taxation or the issue of having prices to go up. We all of us have to work together in a collaborative way. And those of you that are not in any organized group, please join. I don't see how you survive doing business as individuals. Because if you don't belong to any organized group like the American Chamber of Commerce, you would observe that every policy of government hits you direct. Nobody will speak for you. So it's important to belong to an organized group so that anytime you have issues, you test your president and say, these people have come. It's like local government. You live in Abuja. Abuja municipal is the most dangerous agency I've ever seen in my life. They stand in front of your house and be writing different voices. So then they jam each other and they have a magistrate court not far from where they are. And when they issue that invoice, you don't pay, you go to prison the same day. Telling you.
So that means certain things can actually work.
So what we are saying all this is, even though the minister has said he has concentrated all the money for all the levies under the FCA, the Abuja municipal is still, they have more consultants than federal government. So this is the challenge. So what I'm saying all this is, our members are working closely through the Ministry of Industry, Trade and Investment to also address some of this extrajudicial behavior of certain MDAs. I'm not saying we are there yet, but for the first time we are seeing a change in government to collaborate. I'm not also saying all the MDAs are collaborating, but any of them that touch my name, they know me, and I will visit them. At that day, they will not work until I get my result. I normally go like 50 members who block everywhere. Then they say we will not work as our family is closed. So what I'm saying about this, we have to find a way to let them know. For every negative action they take, there's a response. So we are ready to make noise and to make sure we do the right thing.
Thank you. So that's why I asked the question on behalf of your members. So you can see the reason why you're there. You're ready to fight them. Okay? All right. So I'm going to come to you. So it's talks a lot. And there's a role for advocacy. As Nigerians, that's not something that we're big on. So I want you now to just share certain specific things that you do for your members and also tell us how you engage with government to create a more friendly environment.
Well, I think our president has spoken extensively on that. But what I think is important is that as we are seated here, we are practically talking to ourselves. There are no policy makers here. And what our guest does is for us to understand the macroeconomic context in which we are operating. We cannot immediately fix that, and he has given us also strategy on how to navigate it. Our national president said we should and escalate issues. Whether they will work on it or not, that's a different matter. And you already have evidence from what he has said, that we now have somebody who is a reform-minded person, who is a private sector-friendly person, as a minister, who understands the pains and all the pain points of the private sector, and she responds very quickly. So please, if there are issues, just as the one I just said now, about national import duty of 4%, which is huge. As you are sitting here, you may not realize it yet. By the time people begin to advise you with new prices, you will know that something has landed again. At a time when we are talking about reducing prices, bringing down inflation, it's a major advocacy issue. So I think the issue is about letting them know, because that in government they don't have so much information. They don't. And there's nothing as good as documenting complaints. Because individually want anything to be going after them. So you use the platform of an organization like the Nigerian-American Chamber of Commerce. They can't go and hold the DG. The DG doesn't have a factory. It doesn't have many in the sector as the people who should be funding them. We're already paying taxes. Why must you come back? All the agencies that they have oversight responsibility on. You now impose a special levy. Sometimes on turnover, on the value of your assets. I mean, that is very exploitative. FRSC is charging on, is it on turnover or market capitalization? Not on profit, on market cap. The same thing with NDIC on your asset. The same. After we have paid corporate tax, we have paid VAT, we have paid the education tax. So I'm just hoping that these issues, but we need to support him from the private sector so that we know, so that they also can know that these are all issues that need to be addressed. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sweden. That's one of the government's reform policy presently to support the private sector. Recently, single window. That's one of the government, way of doing business in the country. Particularly those of us that are into business of clearing and freight forwarding. We have this challenge of support. So government is bringing all the agencies to talk, can have a good way of relating with government officials. Then back to your question on e-commerce. In my early, remark, I said that logistics support every businesses all over the world. And COVID-19 proved that to us, that logistics is as good as life to any businesses. With the emergence of e-commerce, the volume of business in logistics sphere has actually increased. But the increase has not actually, we can't tackle that to make so much profits. Because the cost of getting a vehicle, we still need $1 to do that. And we know the exchange rates of $1 today, even though it's falling, and Naira is gaining, more power now. So we still run $1 cost. The volume is increasing. E-commerce is reducing unemployment for Atini youth. And government policy of non-oil exports is also on the increase now. Currently, we do consolidation for women in business. We take some of their businesses to US, to Chicago, to everywhere in the world, in form of consolidation, looking for buyers for them. And when that happens, it also increases the production of home. So, the e-commerce is working.
E-commerce is working and it's here to stay. All right, so thank you very much. At this point, I'm going to open the floor for questions. I don't know whether we have a usher with other mics or we need to bring one of those here to the audience. So I want to crave your indulgence that we should be very succinct and apply the principle of brevity in asking the questions. So are there any questions you might have? Okay, so on our extreme right, because I'm very gender biased, there's a beautiful woman over there, and she'll have the opportunity to ask the first question, and then there's a gentleman behind, and then, just the fact that she's a woman.
Thank you. My name is Nkem Onyeboma. I'm an advisor, board member. But as Mr. Tolade, when he presented, I could see the depth of his presentation. My question goes first. In the face of a restrictive monetary policy, and given the fact that the fiscal policies of the government is quite weak, how do you think, or how sustainable from the feedback from this breakfast meeting we should have more like a communique, because I could see that, the discussion is quite in-depth and very engaging and rich. So we have to give a feedback to the policymakers. So please, I would like to get an answer to my question. Thank you.
Okay, so we're going to take the questions in fives. So there's a gentleman at the back, over there. So 2 on that table.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. My name is Mr. Neil Bakari. I'm the Managing Director of Elite Brand Limited. We are a state advertising agency. So my question goes to Dr. Ile concerning the tax reform bills. And I'm more interested, how do the SME, the small business, going to
Good morning. My name is Architect Tahir. I'm the CEO of Nigerian-American. My input and questions is more on the logistics side and the cost of borrowing. In essence, I realized that the data carriers MD has been talking about so many factors in the logistics, but he hasn't mentioned anything about the train that can be improved to move goods and services across the country. Nobody is talking about it. I don't know what's happening from the government section and other sector of the economy. So we need to have more to know more about this, whether if there's any opportunities for you to move larger cargoes, whether it's building material, whether it's foodstuff that can move between the 6 to that zone. And also, the introduction of the CNG in the transport system. But none of the transporters ever said that because I'm using CNG truck, I'm not using diesel truck, so my cost is less to transport your goods. So if you meet a Dangote transporter, when you buy a truck of cement, you see 2 trucks. One is CNG, the other one is diesel. But the price of the transportation of the same product with 2 different measures of energy in the truck is the same cost. So I don't understand the parameters that when you are using CNG is cheaper than when you are using diesel on the trucks. So if the Senate MD, okay, so as I said earlier, most of the questions are on logistics. And the MD or the CEO hasn't mentioned anything about the train system, whether there's a possibility that they are patronizing train system or whatsoever. And also about the CNG model, there are some trucks are using CNG, others are using diesel, where we know the cost of CNG is far less than the cost of diesel. So when you go to, I gave an example, Dangote cement, when you order the cement, you find out he has trucks that are CNG, but they will charge you the same cost to deliver your cement.
Okay, all right.
Yes,
so those are 2 questions, sir.
The last one is about the cost of borrowing for new business. If the CEO of the KPMG can say something about it, so that we now know how we can borrow some money for business. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Architect Tahir. So this table, so all the students in this table will respond and then do another round, please. So we don't lose track.
Okay, good morning, everyone. My name is Chinonso. I work as the Chief Interface Officer at Detailed Commercial Solicitors. So my question goes to the senior partner of KPMG. And it has to do with debt management and general fiscal health. Given the rise in debt, what measures can Nigeria really take to balance growth and maintain debt sustainability generally? Because it's a major concern. And we already see from the budget that there's already a deficit, and there are more plans to borrow. So what are the plans, and what are the measures that Nigeria can take to adopt a balanced, general sustainability of this debt and balanced growth? Thank you.
I think there are 2 hands on this table.
Thank you. My name is Adesuwa Irejawa. I'm a research fellow with the Nigerian Institute of International Affairs, where I head the Bashir Ademi Center for International Trade and Investment. I want to direct my question to you, sir, the partner KPMG. And it's a passionate one for me because you said that investors need to maintain momentum of reforms to attract investment. At the same time, the impact of this on the real sector is there. So there seems to be some kind of trade-off. The impact of the reforms on society is there. So how do we balance that? Is that not an opportunity for direction for Mr. Oliver Daily to focus on domestic investment? Well, my main question is how do we balance that so don't look at approach of investment and how it impacts the growth?
Thank you. And then the last one, the gentleman in front.
Good morning. My name is Anthony Musu. I represent Trans-Alliance Group and I am the group treasurer. So I'm tasked with liquidity management of the entire group. And interestingly, this particular forum is what we always wanted because of the diverse sectors in which we apply our businesses. Travel and hospitality, mining, payment solutions, which is under the fintech, as well as a bit of oil and gas. My question is directly to Tola of KPMG. Having looked at the economic outlook for 2025, so there are two or three aspects. Firstly, because we have a mining field which is such that our receivables are in USD, it is easy for us to get funding. Here we have heard that there has been commitments of about $14 billion in dollars. So my specific question is, how do you see FDIs coming into Nigeria? Not for portfolio investments, real sector, manufacturing, industries like mining. Do you see at the end of 2025 more investors coming into this space as against the portfolio investors? Just to add to that, if I go to my second question, the Nigerian government has promoted a lot in mining in the last couple of months. So I want to hear that. Also on the fintechs, do you see investors injecting funds into fintechs and specifically payment solutions, right? Like flutter waving solution? And the other aspect is directed to our logistics. Do we see, based on the security issues in certain parts of the country, do we see logistics companies shy away from those areas because of the security? This will also help our business in the mining space as well as.
So I'm just respond to the very first question. So,
for the
you probably go last, because it seems like you have a lot of questions.
For the question from the gentleman asking if ZRS is looking at the opportunity or looking at railway services, at the moment we are not, we are not in that development. We have more control over the movement of our valued clients, our own fleets, because we have trackers that monitor. If any unforeseen circumstances happen in the course of movement, if there is a third party and issue of insecurity happens, we don't move out to our client and tell them stories. So that's the reason why we have not taken that route. Because our control over the operation will be minimal. So that's how I know that. But that doesn't mean we will not, do the needful to know and compare the operation with ours. But we put security first and having a control over people's items that might explain what's happening. That's one. Then your second question, as regard to CNG truck and diesel truck and the cost as seen at par. You recall that I said that with government intervention, government infrastructure can only be on road benefits. That's if government has sincere to fix our road. We are not using CNG at the moment, but we use this. And good logistics has to do with good turnaround time and affordability. When diesel was at 200, we have more customers than when diesel is at 1,000. So everybody are cutting, their cost according to their size. People are taking on alternative ways of doing their business. If it will be cheaper for them to travel with their goods than giving it to the logistic company to do for them. If they have anyone that is traveling and is going to Sokoto, please let me carry this back rather than give it to the logistic company. So logistics is not longer cheaper like it used to be, because we still need to use energy. So I don't use water. And the cost of spare parts is dollarized. We are not going to use spare parts in Nigeria. You still have to buy $. So we are not making super profit any longer, but we are just in business as a matter of being concerned.
Okay. So I think his question really was just saying that it's cheaper using CNG and whether you can explore. So more like the same amount for when you charge carrying the product. So I think it wasn't more of the question, more like it's something for you to look at if you're doing more diesel. At the time here, right? Yeah, so that's what he was saying, just something, because it's cheaper for you to power the trucks, the CNG, than diesel. Then the next question is how much more expensive is a truck that uses CNG? So it's not a response.
Let me also add this. The advantage of using CNG as a racing company is to help you to save the amount of diesel you're ever going to see your transit. Yes. That is just the only difference. But what did I now do? You cannot longer see your diesel, you to see your tire. And replace it with a whole tire. So those are the things.
Those are the intricacies. Whichever way, they'll find a way to grab something.
So we don't longer buy fairly used fleets because of our drivers. So we buy a brand new one so that I can hold the company selling to us accountable if anything happens. So buying and old fleets, you are going to play into the hands of the drivers and your mechanic. And by extension, your fleet manager.
So it's a whole cartel. Okay?
So let me also respond to the last in terms of insecurity. Well, every business in the world has a challenge. Logistics, I just said some of the challenges we face on the logistics. And if you look at the issue of insecurity, it's likened to what Bible says that he that consider the cloud will never sow. If you always think that going outside there, you are going to be attacked, you say it out and go. So everything in this life is a risk. And going to business is a risk. You need to invest risk. So it is in the risk taking that will make the money. Yes, we have a security, but we still have to apply that out. All we need to do is like something like that. We have branches in all the systems. So that helps in our planning and information that before our vehicle is used and all that. So we cannot stop. It's security even in America. You go to school, start up class. Even in the morning, you get to classroom and somebody sits on the bed. So risk is part of it. This security is everywhere. You just need to know how to manage it, better information.
Fantastic. Thank you very much for that. And then we'll respond to your question.
Which one was meant for me? The details law firm was the one that asked me the question. Or I can comment there. Okay, what was the question you said? Okay, the new tax. Okay. But first of all, as an SME, like this speaker has mentioned earlier, I think it's not 20 million threshold. You have the tax bill. Like I said, but you have to go to put your documents together, go in tax man to show that you are entitled to the exemption. But there's also a flat tax now which they want to start charging for POS and other electronic transfer, which is 15 flat. So whether you are SME, in fact, when that tax came up, NACC wrote to the FRS that they should increase the threshold of which they will charge to at least 100,000, not 10,000. Because most poor or small businesses, I'm sure I don't really work for America, they have several transactions at that range, 15,000, 10,000, 12,000. Whereas someone like me come and do 50 million, I won't do again for 1 week. But you that is doing several, maybe 1,000 or 10 or even 5, 10 a day, you are paying more tax, even though you are using a smaller amount. So we felt that at that level, they should raise the threshold a little bit so that you can really exempt the poorest of the poor from that kind of vicious cycle. The speaker joined us, and they were very happy when they received a copy of our letter. They did everything to meet with the tax authority, but up to now, no got that meeting. But I hope government should really think about it. Because you need to punish the poor. Because in every inflationary trend, the highest beneficiaries are the rich people. Because they have access to information. If they hear that Lagos State is going to build a new road now, because they are close to the commissioner of transport, they will be buying land on that area. The poor ones of the place are they can change that kind of. So those closer to sources where wealth is created do benefit first before the general public benefits. So that's why thinking in government, you must make sure you always think of go at that level. So as much as possible, record keeping information, rely on your chamber of commerce, and most importantly, one of the main highest advantage of going to an association is that if you as an individual approaches any institution, you have to follow their rules. But I can go to BOI and say that this your template is not acceptable. It's not working for my members. It's driving away investment. They will pay me before I pass a call. Let me negotiate. That is the advantage you have when you deal with associations. Thank you.
Just very briefly on the issue of threshold. The tax reform is proposing, I think, 50 million turnover exemption or something. Now, given what inflation is saying now, if you really want to support SMEs, I think that threshold should be moved to around 100 million. So 50 million is not the cost of your diesel alone in a whole year. Before it's already covering that 50 million. So maybe in our advocacy process, when the public clearance starts, I think we should advocate that threshold should be moved to at least 100 if we really sincerely want to give some relief to small business. SMEs, they call it. So I think 100 million will be more like it. Thank you.
Okay, so over to Tom.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much for the questions. So I'll attempt to provide answers to all of them. If they're ready, we're not expecting any improvements in the sense that it's not as if exchange rates are going to crash or come down sharply. They'll remain in that range. And even when we say we think 1,600, we're talking about an average. So there could be highs and lows, but we're saying the average for those to oil prices, oil production volumes, and then any unanticipated external shocks. Those are the things that I think could cause more volatility in the rates. In terms of borrowing costs, there is a recognition that at the current levels, the borrowing costs just don't make sense for businesses in terms of what kind of returns do they need to generate to be able to pay off those kind of interest rates. So we know that in response to that, government wants to intervene in specific sectors. Mention was made of the other time of single-digit loans to certain sectors. Agriculture remains an area where government wants to intervene and see if they can help to reduce the cost of borrowing there. I think interest rates will come down slightly, but they will remain elevated. And the reason is because of the point that was made. We've seen a mismatch, as it were, between monetary policy and fiscal policy. Monetary policy is driving on its own tangent. The CBN is saying we've got to bring down inflation, and you do that by trying to mop up money, so raise interest rates. The problem has been that the structural issues that have led to the inflation are not issues that are responding to those the monetary measures being taken. So that's why I spoke the other time about really addressing food availability and food sufficiency, and doing things that will improve the cost of producing that food, including addressing security in the farmlands, etc. Those are the things that should help to moderate food prices, which should help to moderate inflation. So because it will take time to address these structural issues, I think interest rates will remain high because the CBN doesn't want inflation to get out of control. More so, a commitment has been made at the level they're trying to get to. So you should expect interest rates to remain high. They could come down slightly, but I think overall they will see them at the levels that they are, which then means for businesses, how do we deal with that? How do we price? How do we try and become as efficient as possible? How do we reduce, unfortunately, our need to borrow to finance the things we need to do? Those are challenges, no doubt. The debt management, debt sustainability. You see, the president, when he was giving his first, meet the press, he said, there's nothing wrong with debt. Borrow as much as you want, etc. It's what you do with the money borrowed. That's the key. And we agree with him there. It's about channeling the borrowing into productive sectors. Even as individuals, we know that you don't borrow to fund wasting assets. You borrow to fund things that will help to increase your wealth so that your capacity to repay is there. So it's all about what's the borrowing being targeted into. If the borrowing is being targeted into salaries, then that's a mismatch, as has been said. So it's all the way to deal with this. You've got to channel your borrowing into productive sectors. And then you've got to have a plan for managing the repayments. So you've got to be proactive in looking at what are the repayments that I've committed to. Usually these loans, when they take them, there's a moratorium period, then the repayments kick in. So I expect that at the federal level, the same way we do as individuals, there's got to be a forecast looking at sequencing of all the repayments as they come due and making sure that we can manage them on a sustainable basis. I still think a situation where your debt repayments are 63% of your revenues or higher, that doesn't speak to sustainability. More needs to be done in terms of the sequencing of these loans and the, I don't know whether it's proactive renegotiation of the loans so that we don't end up in a Ghana situation. The beauty is if you're channeling the loans into productive areas, then you would argue that your capacity to repay is further enhanced. So that's what needs to be addressed from a debt sustainability point of view. And that's what we're calling on government to really take a look at and make sure that the borrowing makes sense. The other question, the challenge between, yes, external investors are saying, continue with the reforms. If you continue with the reforms and we see it on a sustained basis, then we will bring money, then we'll come and invest. But for now, we're being cautious. As you continue with the reforms, there's real pain being inflicted in the economy. At the last NACC summit we had, I remember it created some sensation when, I think it was the guy from World Bank or IMF, when people were saying, how long will these reforms last? And he said, you've got to see the reforms sustained. I think he said 7 to 10 years. 15 years. Thank you. And people shouted. But that 15 years of this, but the reality is that yes, we're vital. But the point about what are you doing, to attract domestic investment is equally important and equally pertinent in this question. And that's where all the measures around ease of doing business in Nigeria come in. So we mentioned that the current Minister of Trade, she was running PEPEC. She's been part of all these ease of doing business initiatives. And I think that's what government really needs to focus on. Taxation is one of them, property titles are another, just the number of permits, the number of regulatory agencies that come in, all these things are around ease of doing business. The single window that my co-panelists spoke about, very important factor in ease of doing business. So the real answer to that question is that during this period, while we continue with the reforms, waiting for them to kick in and foreign investors to come in, we've got to make sure that we're doing things to improve ease of doing business for local manufacturers. That's the real answer. There are detailed plans in place around what needs to be done. So it's not about lack of knowledge of what needs to be done. It's about executing them on a really sustained basis. But the point has been made that as we execute them, we must also have an eye on the vulnerable in the society and make sure that we have programs to cater to the real vulnerable people in the society. Otherwise, otherwise, you'll have a problem in the economy. But let me say to you, as we wait for this 15 years, it's not as if it's at the end of 15 years we will see the benefit. We expect to be seeing the benefits from the benefits will accrue over the 15 years. Then there was a question around sectors to say, given all that's happening, do we expect to see real investment or to do more in terms of regulation in that sector and just helping to clean up and consolidate the sector? The other day, the president announced in his trips to France an MOU has been signed who are coming to, help to reactivate. Thank you.
The last set of questions now. And as always, please, let's apply the principle of brevity, straight to the point question. I want to create the indulgence. Please, one person should ask one question so we give other people the opportunity to ask. So don't ask 3 or 4 questions. Please, just one, so that more people can ask.
Excuse me. I want to add something to the security question that was asked.
Okay.
In addition to all that I've said, as a logistic company, we have GIT, that is goods in transit insurance. That protects everybody's goods in our care. So if we run into bandits, we run into an accident, your goods are safe. You get your money back 100%.
My name is Dapper Adamawa. I'm the director of Distinct Star Schools. My question is Mr. Tayo. Mr. Thomas, sorry. I might be trying to get a free consultation here, but in the education sector, we are really struggling with raising funds. 30%, I once joked to my banker that I could only go into drugs to make those kind of returns in education or something. Are there any specific ways we can resolve that problem in terms of raising funds, which is very central to what we do in terms of building new schools, buying up land, and so on? Thank you, sir.
Okay, there's a lady there on this table. Thank you, John.
Good afternoon. My name is Farah Katakir. I'm an executive real estate advisor and joint venture facilitator at My Saving Tech. And referencing Mr. Tola's speech, and he talked about the main sectors where governments are going to be focusing a lot of funding. I was going to ask about what are some new opportunities, even though there's a lot of stress and strife due to the new measures that the government is taking. But what are some new opportunities that are open where SMEs have positioned themselves to take advantage? Places that are perhaps due to this new focus on fundraising. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. There's another lady behind her.
Good afternoon. My name is Titi Jimakiwa. I'm here with my partner, Michael Kajuri. We represent the agri sector. So I think my question would really go to Mr. Tola and maybe any other person who is able to answer. And my concern is the low productivity that you mentioned, which is actually, I think it's a must do if we're really going to, if all these things we're saying will make sense. At the end of the day, if we're going to jumpstart this economy the way we should. So I look at the agri sector. And at this morning, President is adding 4.6 something trillion for infrastructure. And I just wonder, do we really know what infrastructure is in agri? And are we ready for it? Because you can't have infrastructure in agri if we're not interested in human capacity development. We need to train people. You know, when people talk about the timeline, whether we like it or not, these things, we need to plan 10 years, 15 years. You know, the Marshall Plan is of those things. That's how it works. We need to plan timelines. And so my question is, isn't it time for us to look at, to plug some holes? There's some things we're doing in Nigeria, we've been doing it forever, that we need to shut down and reboot. For example, NYSC. You know, we're spending a lot of money for NYSC, and as of this year, we're being told that they are going to be paid 70,000 and we're excited. And you know that's nothing more than the truth. So my thinking is, should we not begin to think of reskilling and upskilling? Maintain NYSC, but change the concept. Because a lot of our graduates that are coming out, they're not trained to do anything. most of them. And you agree with me that the agri sector has the longest value chain that includes everybody, whether it's fintech or logistics or whatever. So should we not, even if we're going to maintain NYSC, in any other civilized clime, they would have changed it by now. So can we just think about cottage industries where even when we send NYSC people to wherever we send them to, with LGA, sorry please, just give me a minute. With LGA autonomy coming up, we want to spend a lot of money. Any country where you have seen agriculture developed in the private sector, it is the local government, municipal authorities, where you see most of those things happening. So if we don't plug where this autonomy money is going to quickly, and also we skill and upskill our young people who are in the NYSC to begin to develop cottage industries, and that means training.
So at this point, I have to
you.
stop. You know, I asked for principle of brevity. My vice president.
Sorry, my name is Ibrahim, I'm Deputy President, Nigerian-American Chamber of Commerce. I'll make it very brief. My problem is to borrow money from the background. Mr. Adeyemi can answer. Dr. Yusuf can answer. Delaware can answer. So, if we were to borrow 100 million today from any of these banks, I asked them just last week, they say it's between 36 and 38% to borrow money. And you know, they add some other hidden charges, is 40%. I don't know how Zenith Carex is coping. It means if you borrow 100 million, within a cycle of 1 year, you're supposed to pay back 140 million. It's not sustainable in this economy. It's not. So what do we need to do? Thank you.
Okay. All right. And then the last question.
Thank you very much, moderator. Distinguished panel discussion. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a cost of living crisis in Nigeria. Reality. We have a cost of doing business crisis. Then we have a national security crisis. Dimension into 6 sites, according to each of the schools of the authority. And which impacts the ease of doing business. Moderator, my question is to you. Because you focus on enterprise development, small, medium, that is the those are the building blocks in any country. With this situation we have mentioned, these 3 different crises, SES, how will small businesses succeed on a sustainable basis when we cannot have easy access? After all these 3 problems I mentioned, then on top of it, you can't have easy access to single-digit loans.
Okay. All right, and that's the final question. So the question I also want to ask, right? No, yes. No, I'm not asking him. No, so this came out when Tora was presenting, and we talked about productivity, right? We talked about productivity, then we also now looked at investment in education also. And I begin to wonder that what we have observed is that in the Nordic region, they spend significantly more on education than most other countries. And when we look at their productivity level, we see it's higher. So typically in the Nordic region, anything from 3.5% of their GDP all the way to 7.8%, at sometimes 8%, is spent on education. And their productivity level is high. In the Nordic region, for you to be a teacher, you have to be top of the class. Not anybody is allowed to go and stand in front and teach. So we now see productivity at the end of the day maxing out. In Nigeria, we spend roughly, I don't think we've ever spent up to 0.7% of our GDP or 1% of our GDP on education. And we're 100 and something downwards on productivity. Should we not start now looking at talent? And to fix the crisis we have on the continent, as far as I'm concerned, we must face education, we must face teaching. And you talked about MSME. 20 years ago when we started, if I go into a class and ask, give me your top 2 challenge, it will always be funding. It will be funding, it will be infrastructure. Before, maybe number 4 or 5, it will come to talent. Now, when I go into a class, teaching entrepreneurs and ask them, what's your top challenge? It's talent. So, yes, my vice president, you mentioned 40% deputy, sorry. I want to make him vice president of Nigeria. I think it will be better. If you take 1 billion, you're paying 400 million, it's 40%, but you can still have that money, but who does the work? So the major crisis that we're having actually, in as much as you say, oh, it's very interesting, we have high youth population, there are high youth population, but the people that are coming out is a challenge. To recruit for the MSME industry is a challenge. And it's a charge to all of us. So this is a charge to everybody. The education sector as it is structured cannot work, is not working. For the lot of us that were born in the 60s and 70s that are running businesses, I want to charge.
If you're actually trying to practice, you know that it's difficult for them to manage. The truth is, there are several sources of ways you can fund your business. Very, very several. You can go for equity, because some people think to borrow is only the last option. You can go for it. All you need first is to have somewhere that has an idea. So then you need to have money. That's your idea, you can put it on Instagram or on the website. You see people are showing interest. You can now use their interest to bring people into this kind of room, employ someone like him, and get potential investors who you would demonstrate your capacity. So this is so don't always, if you go to a bank fair like you want to build a house, that means the bank will take the house by your foundation. You won't build the deck. Because it's highest they give you 18 months. So, and that means you are building for them. You only use their money to do finishing, as we say, so I can get your rent and paper. So I don't encourage my members to go to commercial banks. Because they are not for us at this time today in Nigeria. There are several development banks. We still do at 10, 11, 12%. But even if there's a medium bank between. And the deal we are doing with BI, I'm insisting that they will manage intermediary bank so that the spread between them and that bank, they can also control it. So this is the kind of things we can do through your own organizations. They have the 75 billion loan, which they are giving 5 million to small SMEs. And they cut off some for NACC. And they even went as far as they even some within NACC, if you can bring a microfinance, who can guarantee that they can even give you directly within at least one of my city or state chambers to use it. So there are many ways now. So don't go to commercial banks unless you are selling the thing the other man said. I don't want to destroy it. Because I don't see anybody that can survive on that. So it's very important to be creative, get advice. Going to bank is the last resort if you have tried other options. So this is very important. And so we can also belong to cooperative societies. In my own state, cooperative societies are borrowing at 3%. They can't even see people to give money to. I have about one of my cooperative societies, they have 1.5 million members in it. Even within that cooperative, what you produce, you have enough taken to your cooperative society. So you cannot walk alone. Those of you that think, especially the SMSMEs, that you think you are so strong, you are so arrogant, go and be the commercial bank. And they will take the car you were holding before and nothing will happen. So you must be creative, learn, get mentors, get people who have succeeded, look for people, don't start alone. It will never work in this today Nigeria. So it's very important you learn this. To actually take this from there. So those of you, ask your chamber, use their platform, use it, very important. Then coming to the issue of the NYSC, madam, I fully disagree with you. I'm a product of NYSC. If I did not go to NYSC, I probably would so limited, not even know half of Nigeria. I have my very limited knowledge about my other tribes. It's one of the highest form of liberation which is still keeping Nigeria together. If you check the reason you're able to know a little bit about Nigeria, is NYSC. Government has made another program. In fact, probably the only program government is providing subsidy now. They've taken something from everything. But I also agree with you that it needs to be reformed. Because they are still using 1973 mindset to run an AI 2025 economy. It won't work. In fact, in my own organization, I prefer we do more of e-meetings than physical meetings. Because through e-meetings, you get more people in the room. But when you try to do fiscal meeting in today's cost, some people can pay flight for 140,000 to be able to come for a meeting in Lagos and pay another hotel. I was looking at a very senior person consultancy. He said the rice they gave me the co hotel was 41,000. And he can never use his salary to buy that rice. So this is how bad it is. Things are really, really difficult. In fact, I tell some people, I don't earn in dollars. I don't know how they exist in Nigeria. I tell you. So what I'm saying is, we are all, even in spite of all these problems, as entrepreneurs, we are all prisoners of hope. And I know some people today are making so much money from this crisis. And it's the right thing to do, but also be reasonable. I'm not saying you should make a law. Find a way to also employ other surveillance. And again, most importantly, let all of us stay focused, continue to hope, don't ever give up. Because then you keep on, because there are other smaller people looking at you, who is using you to survive, just looking at you that you are beaten. So when you, the leaders of business in your community, decide to give up. So in all this, I just wanted to say this, that we should all try as much as possible not to go to loan first to borrow. There are several ways of getting money into your business. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. So I'll just make some remarks on the questions. There was a question there about education, you know, how you raise financing for education. It doesn't differ from how you raise financing from anything else. It's about having a business plan, being able to show that you have the capacity to repay the funds that you borrow. Having said that, but of course, again, there are, you know, charitable sources of financing for education. But having said that, when you look at the education sector, so in this room, everybody has a relative who is schooling out of Nigeria, and those fees are being paid in foreign currency. What's the trend we've seen? So right now, I'm aware of 2 British schools that have come to Nigeria to set up shop. So Charterhouse, and when they opened, you knew all the controversy around their fees. There's Rugby School, they're opening in September. What they perceive as value and real value, and Nigerians will pay. I understand Charterhouse that everyone was screaming about. I understand it's almost full. Yeah. Can demonstrate an ability to pay back. But the points that you made about what kind of education do we need to have, I think that's so important. You know, we always boast about our youthful population, but our youthful population will be population is not skilled. The seminar, they brought the head of Microsoft for Africa, and the question they were challenging her with is ethical for you to be promoting artificial intelligence in Africa when we need to be doing industries that provide jobs. And her answer was simple. She said, whether you like it or not, you cannot stop the wave of artificial intelligence. Take away certain kinds of jobs, and those ones will be. So the real challenge for Africa and its leaders is to reskill the population. That's the real thing. So it's not a discussion about, oh, don't invest in technology. She said you can't stop it. The technology, the population. And that is where I fully agree with you. And I think that's the linkage to education as well. It's about what are the skills we need to be providing to our youth in order to change that program. It's a huge pool of talent that if we provide the right skills, I think can really help to transform the economy. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so, okay, yes.
Yeah, very briefly, talking about education, I think we also need to be mindful about inclusiveness, because there's a lot of segmentation even in education. I've spoken to private school proprietors. Some schools, in order to accommodate the challenges of the moment, parents are paying every month school fees. Insist that everybody should pay. The school will be empty. And you already have a lot of fixed assets. Whether you have 3 pupils or you have 20, it's the same teacher. So people are getting innovative. But what is most important in this is that education and health are investment in human capital. You cannot invest in education and be going to a commercial bank. In a country that is serious about developing its human capital, there should be a Emefiele has a lot of baggage. But when it comes to intervention to support the real sector, he did a lot. Of course, there were abuses. But you cannot go from one extreme to another extreme. So we should look at what he did in terms of supporting some of these.
Thank you so much for saying that. So thank you so much, my panelists. I agree with both of you on education. And there is a Pan-African fund that funds education. I can't remember the name now. So for those in education, that might be your best option. But the challenge with funds outside is that they'll do a minimum ticket size of maybe 1 or 2 or 3 million euros. And with what's happening now, a lot of us cannot absorb that type. I think that is something that you should look at. And what that means is that from a corporate governance perspective, you have to be top-notch. So for a lot of businesses now, corporate governance is very weak or almost non-existent. If you're looking for those type of funding, make sure that with or without you, it's a going concern. Now, to wrap up everything that we've heard, and I want to say that this has been very, very engaging, and I think that we need to have a part 2. Rather than talk to ourselves, because we know the problems, we feel the problem, maybe we should bring some of those people in, and so they can hear. Hopefully, if they hear some conversation highlights, I use an acronym called MISAS, that's MISAS. Looking at the 2025 budget, the conversations that we've had, the end there is that whether we like it or not, we cannot avoid the next generation that will move the needle for us. That's the young adults. They do better because they realize their potential. So my charge to everybody is that we need to start to think about what mentoring programs that we can start, belong, or be part of. The I is for information. Without information, you're not going anywhere. And for all of us here, information is hard. In fact, the more information you have, the less likely that you need to go and visit a commercial bank and ask for 38 or 40 or 42% loan. So please not be information shy. For you to be here, it means that you're already looking for information, but it's a cap that we have to wear throughout the year. And then the S is that it's for strategies. In a system that we have, we cannot be reactive. We can't afford to be reactive. We must be proactive. And that means that we're constantly re-strategizing. The strategy you had last quarter is probably not going to work third quarter of this year. So strategy, strategy, strategy. The A is for association. You're not an island. We must associate. We've heard a lot from Deloitte talking about belonging. There's something that comes with belonging. When you belong, there's an umbrella. So when it rains, that umbrella protects you. So if you are not a member of any association, you need to think about that. And then the last S is that when we get them into the room, we need to have conversations around streamlining our taxes, streamlining our regulation, streamlining our fines, and basically for us as entrepreneurs, even streamlining our processes so that the business model we have works for us and works for our customers. Thank you very much for being a wonderful audience, and thank you so much to the panelists. I think that as Oliver Twist, representing Oliver Twist, we probably will be asked again to come back by the chamber for a part 2. So I'm handing over to Warfire. Thank you.
Thank you. Could you please pose for a quick picture? Can we get the photographers? A quick picture of the panelists. While the picture session is going on, please, breakfast at this time, I'll say brunch is being served. So if you just exit the hall to your left, brunch is outlined to your left, out of the hall. While the picture session is going on, the interviews will be going on, we're breaking for 15 minutes. Please exit the hall, eat something, return, and then we'll have our awards presentation. A good time to network. Go around, meet people, talk to them. A good time to network, go around, meet people, talk to them. Please have a quick bite. Left side of the hall, please have a quick bite.
you very much. We'd also like to have our board members on stage. While the event was going on, Ms. Grace Adeyemo walks in, the chairman of our Trade and Investment Committee. May we have you on stage, ma'am? Dr. Adeko Sudo.
Ever close your eyes, ever sit and listen, ever feel alive, and you're nothing missing. You don't need a reason, let the day go on and on. Let the rain fall down everywhere around you, give into it now, let the day surround you. You don't need a reason, let the rain go on and on.
Here is a world where logistics is seamless, efficient, reliable, and delivery difference. Welcome to Nigeria, and welcome to Zenith Carex Express.
We are Nigeria's giant indigenous courier and logistics company with operations across Nigeria and globally. Our operations include supply chain and distribution, freight forwarding by sea and air, warehousing and cold chain management, express courier and parcel delivery, e-commerce logistics, and customized or tailored logistics operations.
Within Nigeria and beyond, we deliver and handle your logistics needs with professionalism and trust. Our professional team, with over 20 years of operations experience, understands the terrain and standards and can navigate every huddle to ensure timely clearing and delivery of your cargo or shipment. Working with our trusted network of partners, we are not only championing the logistics sector in Nigeria, we are fostering economic development, creating jobs, and supporting our people. Connect with Zenith Carex Express and experience the difference in our delivery.
We have the distinct honor of celebrating a man whose impact transcends the screen, an icon, a mentor, and a source of inspirations to many. Richard Moffett Damijo, fondly known as R&D, is just not an actor, but a cultural force in the entertainment industry. With a career spanning decade, he has graced our screens and exceptional performances, defined excellence, and paved the way to many young talents. Beyond this artistic achievement, R&D is also a man of integrity, leadership, and service. With dedication to storytelling, his passion for the creative arts, and his influence in shaping narratives that uplift and educate have set him apart. So it is with great honor and pride and admiration that we present to him with this well-deserved award in recognition of his outstanding contributions to the entertainment industry and his continued legacy of excellence. Please join me in celebrating and applauding this fine one and only R&D. It is my honor and privilege on behalf of the board and members of the Nigerian-American Chamber of Commerce to present this award to you, Creative Industry Legend Award. Truly, you are an legend and serve as inspiration to many people all over the world. In recognition of your contribution to the growth and development of Nigeria's creative industry, given this day, February 6, 2025. Congratulations. Board members should please join us quickly.
Sweet.
Yeah, a few words from Richard.
That is what I want to do. Don't worry, just keep doing it. You'll be a little break before the event starts.
And could we have a few words from Richard, our recipient? Thank you.
I'd like to convey my very deep appreciation to the Nigerian-American Chamber of Commerce for this award. The same way you are alive and you receive awards is an indication that you have a lot more work to do. When I turned 64 years ago, I jokingly said that I would be the first Nigerian 60-plus actor to blow. So, so I guess, you know, my dream for my 60s is already in motion by this award. I want to thank you very, very sincerely for this award and for deeming me worthy to receive it. I would like to apologize for dragging everybody here earlier than scheduled. They say when duty calls or when national duty calls, you have to obey. The minute my appointment was moved, I had to call Mr. Brema to warn him that something had happened to our timing, and I'm happy he was able to pull it off. So once again, thank you very much, and I wish I could stay back and enjoy breakfast with you, but I have to go. Thank you so much for this award. God bless you.
So everybody, could you kindly come up to the stage for a picture with Richard, please? Yes, please, as quickly as possible, he has to exit. Please, our visitors, rapporteurs, please come up for a picture.
Please, just, yes, don't worry. Please, let's make it quick. Not many people, I've known Richard Mufidamiya for more than 30 years, so we've had a long and enduring friendship. And we've come a long way. Right from the days of Bendel State. Up and there. Thank you. So let's have the case for the
Here is a world where logistics is seamless, efficient, reliable, and delivery difference. Welcome to Nigeria, and welcome to Zenith Carex Express.
We are Nigeria's giant indigenous courier and logistics company with operation. Our operations include supply chain and distribution, freight forwarding by sea and air, warehousing, express courier and parcel delivery, e-commerce logistics, and customized or tailored logistics operations.
Within Nigeria and beyond, we deliver and handle your logistics needs with professionalism and trust. Our professional team, with over 20 years of operations experience, understands the terrain and standards and can navigate every huddle to ensure timely clearing and delivery of your cargo or shipment. Working with our trusted network of partners, we are not only championing the logistics sector in Nigeria, we are fostering economic development, creating jobs, and supporting our people. Connect with Zenith Carex Express and experience the difference in our delivery.
We have the distinct honor of celebrating a man whose impact transcends the screen, an icon, a mentor, and a source of inspirations to many. Richard Moffett Damijo, fondly known as RMD, is just not an actor, but a cultural force in the entertainment industry. With a career spanning decade, he has graced our screens and exceptional performances, defined excellence, and paved the way to many young talents. Beyond this artistic achievement, RMD is also a man of integrity, leadership, and service. With dedication to storytelling, his passion for the creative arts, and his influence in shaping narratives that uplift and educate have set him apart. So it is with great honor and pride and admiration that we present to him with this well-deserved award in recognition of his outstanding contributions to the entertainment industry and his continued legacy of excellence. Please join me in celebrating and applauding this fine one and only RMD. It is my honor and privilege on behalf of the board and members of the Nigerian-American Chamber of Commerce to present this award to you, Creative Industry Legend Award. Truly, you are an legend and serve as inspiration to many people all over the world. In recognition of your contribution to the growth and development of Nigeria's creative industry, given this date, February 6, 2025. Congratulations. The board members should please join us quickly.
Here is a world where logistics is seamless, efficient, reliable, and delivery difference. Welcome to Nigeria, and welcome to Zenith Carex Express.
We are Nigeria's giant indigenous courier and logistics company with operations across Nigeria and globally. Our operations include supply chain and distribution, freight forwarding by sea and air, warehousing and cold chain management, express courier and parcel delivery, e-commerce logistics, and customized or tailored logistics operations.
Within Nigeria and beyond, we deliver and handle your logistics needs with professionalism and trust. Our professional team, with over 20 years of operations experience, understands the terrain and standards and can navigate every huddle to ensure timely clearing and delivery of your cargo or shipment.